Okay, so we're going to begin with the nervous system. We're going to go today over the nervous system chapter, introducing the nervous system, and then going into the central nervous system. The next chapter is going to be the spinal cord. So let's begin. Let's define our nervous system. So remember we mentioned that the nervous system is always the nervous system is responsible for receiving and generating output. So you always have a control, processing, and integration center. You have a control, processing, and integration center. Control, processing, and integration center. This control, processing, and integration center is responsible for receiving input. You see, this input has to originate from a very important point. The input has to originate from a very important point. Please make sure you're copying all of that down. So the input begins from a very important point and starts from this point and travels all the way in order to terminate in the control processing integration center. If you think of, for example, let's say you were in the streets one day and you needed the cops, or you needed the ambulance, or you needed the fire truck. Those are three different things that you need: police, fire truck, or the ambulance. Well, you're gonna have to make a contact. You're gonna have to send a signal and call the call center, right? Isn't that what we do? We always call. Who do we call? We call the call center. People say call the cops. But did you actually call the cop? Did you call the guy who showed up? Did you call his cell phone? The guy who showed up to your doorstep, the policeman, did you call his cell phone? No, you did not call his cell phone. Did you call the fireman, the guy's phone number who showed up to kill the fire from the fire truck? Did you call the ambulance guy's cell phone? No, you called the center. So we always send the input into the center. Where did the input come from? Well, the input came from a sensor. The input came from a sensor, also known as a receptor. A sensor, also known as a receptor, also known as a detector. So in the case of you calling the police center, you calling 911 center because you want the police. Who are you in this case? Are you the control processing integration center, or are you the sensor receptor detector? Yes, because you're the one who sensed that something was wrong. You sensed that the police needs to be called. You're the one who sensed that there's fire. There's somebody laying dead, comatose, drug overdose, or somebody's bleeding, gunshot wound. You saw some medical emergency. So always the sensor and the receptor and the detector are going to be sending the input, always sending the input command. So the input comes from the sensor, receptor, detector into the control, processing, and integration center. Is that clear? Mm-hmm. Then we go from the receptor, sensor, detector into the control, processing, and integration center, and the input is always sensory. True or false? Your input is always reporting a sensory signal, because when you call the center, you're telling them what you're sensing. You're telling them you're sensing there's a fire. You're telling them you're sensing that there is violence or a crime, or you need the police, or you're sensing there's a fire truck, you need the fire truck. So you're always, the input is always sensory. True or false?
True.
Input is always sensory. And the name of the nerve, the neuron in your body, the nerve that carries the sensory input is called afferent. Is called afferent input. That is called afferent input. True or false?
True.
Afferent input. Very good. So whenever I say one, I don't need to say the other two. If I tell you input, I mean sensory afferent. True or false?
True.
If I say sensory, I mean input afferent. If I say one, I mean the two. They come together. They all come together. Even if I say only one, you gotta say the other two. If I say input, I mean sensory afferent. If I say sensory, I mean input afferent. If I say afferent, I mean input sensory. Is that part clear?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if you have a computer, desktop computer like this one that I have here, I have a mouse, I have a keyboard, I have a monitor, screen monitor, and I have this big rectangular box, the central processing unit, the CPU. You know what I mean? If you look at that, if I type on the keyboard the letter A, B, C, D, now A, B, C, D, I press that on the keyboard and I move the mouse. So that makes the mouse and the keyboard what? Does it make them the receptor, sensor, detector, or does it make them control, processing, integration center? The sensor. Because if you press the letter A and it is not shown up in the monitor, it means that the cord was not plugged. That's why you weren't able to send the sensor, receptor, detector information into who? So who would be the control processing center in this desktop computer now? The CPU. Very good. So that's the central processing center. Then when you put ABC and it goes into the central processing control center, what will the control processing center send out? It will send out a
Signal.
it will send out a so the control processing center receives input sensory afferent and it will process it. It will process it. It will integrate it. It will control it. And it will generate out the output. So we will have a output. So if we have an input, then so the input is always starting from the sensor, receptor, detector, going into the control processing integration center. And the output is always coming out of the control processing center and heading to where? Heading to the
effector.
Thank you. To the effector. Very good, Barrington. It's heading to the effector. So the output is always motor because the input is always
Sensory.
input sensory afferent, output motor,
Afferent.
efferent.
Efferent.
Very good. So in the case of calling the police, you call the police, you call the call center sends the police. So you are the receptor, sensor, detector. The call center receives your call and they send you the effector. Who's gonna be the effector?
The pole.
Police.
I'm sorry? The police or the fireman or the ambulance. Very good, very good, very good. Okay, in the computer, the mouse, the keyboard, or the
Sensor, receptor, detector.
And the CPU is the,
Control processing integration center.
and then the control processing integration center. And who's going to be the effector?
The screen?
Screen, the monitor. Very good. Now, in your body, we don't have a monitor, we don't have a phone, we don't have a call center, we have a nervous system. So, who in our nervous system is going to play the role of the receptor, sensor, detector?
The brain?
Your brain is not the receptor. Your brain is the.
That's in the control from. Nervous?
Yes, very good. Very good. So McKinsey said that the brain is the one who is the call center, the one that receives the call and sends out the output. So from the name, receptor, it's always the receptor. We have different types of receptors. What are they? Thermoreceptor. Thermoreceptor. What does the thermoreceptor detect?
Heat and temperature.
Heat and temperature. Very good. How hot things are and how cold things are. What about a nociceptor? What's a nociceptor? It detects pain. Very good. So nociceptor detects the pain. So when you grab ice, when you hold ice with your fist, first it feels really cold. After a while, it doesn't feel cold. It feels what?
Numb and kind of painful.
Pain. Very good. So why was that? How come cold then pain?
Because your brain, the receptor is telling the brain that it hurts.
Because first it was a thermoreceptor who was telling the brain it's cold. But when you hold it on for too long, it's not anymore thermoreceptor. What is it now? Nociceptor. Very good. So the nociceptor is sending noxious, painful stimuli. We have more types of receptors. What about chemoreceptors?
Chemical.
What do the chemoreceptors detect? Chemicals. Those are the tasters. They taste the blood. Blood is too sugar. Hyperglycemia, hypoglycemia, too much salty, hypernatremia, hyponatremia, too much potassium, too little magnesium. So when you detecting too much calcium, hypercalcemia, hypocalcemia, that is always going to be a report coming from a chemoreceptor. So that's different from real life. In real life, you don't have certain people who will call the police for you, and certain people who will call the fire truck for you, and certain people who will call the ambulance. No, you can call anybody. You can report all at the same time. But in your body, it's not like that. In your body, when it's hot, only thermoreceptors call the central nervous system. If it's painful, only the nociceptors call the central nervous system. When it's some chemical going up, hyper or hypo, only the chemoreceptors. There's also touch and tickling and tingling and tactile touch. That's the mechanoreceptors. Mechanoreceptors. Those are mechanoreceptors. So those detect the touch. Too hard, too little. So first, if your door hit your fingers, what happens? First you feel touch, then you feel pain, right? Somebody steps on your foot. First it feels like a touch, mechanoreceptor, but then it feels like a nociceptor. Very good. So all these receptors, they are the ones who send out the input. And then the input gets processed, controlled. The input gets processed, controlled, integrated, and then an output comes out. There's one more thing you need to know. When you call the center, do you just need to tell them that, listen, I need the ambulance, I need the fire truck, I need the police? Or do you gotta tell them your address too? You gotta tell the address. So on your skin, when you feel heat, you feel exactly heat on your index finger when you touch the stove. You didn't feel it on your foot because your foot wasn't on the stove. So when you call the police, you want the ambulance in the Bronx. They're not gonna send the ambulance to Staten Island. So you need to know the location. So your body is very interesting how complex your body is. It only has 2 locations. And the locations are basically what type of tissue is it. So there's only 2 lines coming out. Only 2 lines coming out of there are only 2 lines that are coming out. There are only 2 lines that are coming out from the sensor, receptor, detector. So we have 2 input lines coming in, and both are sensory, and both are afferent. And the same way we have 2 lines coming out of the control processing center, and both are output, motor, and efferent. Output, motor, efferent. Output, motor, efferent. Well, what are the 2 borrows that I need now? Where are the 2 locations that I can go to? I have one of 2 locations, no third one. The first one is either, so those 2 lines are the same so far. Input, input, sensory, sensory, afferent, afferent. What can only be the difference?
Brain and body.
What are the only 2 differences?
The nerve system.
Nerve system. So we only have somatic and visceral. You have somatic and visceral. We have somatic and visceral. We have somatic and visceral. Somatic and visceral. Somatic and visceral. So same thing, the output is also going to be somatic. Somatic and somatic and visceral. Okay, what does that mean? That means if there is a sensory receptor detector stimulation coming from the somatic system, the output is going to be coming out to the somatic system. You see? So black here, you see if you're somatic, you're going to go into the system like you are representing a stimulus that is coming from the somatic system. That's like when you call for the ambulance from Staten Island. Somatic means you are experiencing the stimulation on a somatic tissue. But visceral means you're experiencing the sensation on a what?
Cellular level.
On a, it gives you the sensation on a, give you the sensation on a, what does somatic and visceral mean?
Isn't somatic the automatically? And then
Okay.
visceral is.
So we have two types of organs. We have two types of organs. There are somatic organs and there are visceral organs. Somatic organs and visceral organs. Yes.
I know that the somatic organ is smooth organs like the heart and so forth, but the visceral, that's the skeletal muscles.
You reversed it. So somatic is the tough tissue. 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 What are the tough organs? Tough tissues, or don't put tissue, put organs. The tough organs. Those are the tough organs. Tough organs such as bone, muscle, tendon, bone, muscle, tendon, ligament. That's tough tissue. So that tough tissue, does it not feel pain? Does it not feel heat? Does it not feel mechanical stimulation? It does. So that's the somatic line. Visceral is the soft one. So that is your brain. Your brain is soft. Your heart,
Skin.
your lungs, your liver, your intestines, and you get it. Intestines, your bladders, urinary bladder, and gallbladder, and your stomach, and so on. Yeah.
Question.
Yes.
Is it visceral because it's on the side of the visceral, what the thing name again, the cavity, the cavity with the inside visceral, and they are inside the cavity on the visceral side.
So visceral. So the brain is visceral, but it's not in the cavity. It's up here. So visceral means you're soft. Visceral always protected with a cover, with a case. Like the skull is covering the visceral brain. The rib cage is covering the visceral lungs and heart. Okay?
Yeah.
Wait, I got a question.
Yeah.
So what is the difference as far as it like coming from the sensor receptor, going into the control processing, as far as it being separated by somatic and visceral? Like that they're both the same for input, sensory, afferent. Like what is that difference?
The difference is if I feel temperature, if it's hot on my muscle and bone, and I feel hot in my lung, or it feels hot in my brain or in my bladder, when it feels hot on bone or tough tissue, it will take this route, the black route up here. Input, sensory, afferent, somatic. But when it feels hot, same thing, hot, pain, chemical, but on a soft tissue like brain, lung, it will take the other route.
Like it's like a fixed thing. Like this is soft tissue, so it's gonna follow this route. This is
Absolutely, you got it.
this route.
Soft tissue
Okay.
takes one route, tough tissue takes the other route. So what about the output? Now we processed, we controlled everything. So somatic tissue input comes in, the output is gonna be somatic too. The output is gonna be somatic too. And the output, if it comes in visceral, the output is gonna be visceral. The output is gonna be visceral. Clear? Is that clear?
Yeah.
Okay, so now the effectors, we said we have two types of effectors who will do the effect. What are the two types of effectors? The first effector is an organ or a gland. So let's look at a thermoreceptor. when it's too hot outside, who's gonna fire a sensor, receptor, detector, stimulation?
Thermoreceptor?
The thermoreceptor. The thermoreceptor is gonna take which line? If the heat is on my skin, is it gonna take the visceral, sensory, afferent, visceral, or input sensory, afferent, somatic? Black or brown?
Visceral.
Somatic.
Somatic.
It's gonna take somatic because that's my skin.
But isn't skin a soft?
No, skin is tough tissue. It's part of because it's on the muscle. And then we take the input sensory afferent somatic. We come to the control processing integration center. We get processed and we understand that hey, it's hot. That's the first information. B, it's coming from somatic tissue. And C, we need to cool off. So we're gonna take which route out? Black, output motor, efferent somatic, or brown, output motor, efferent visceral.
Somatic.
We're gonna take somatic, and we're gonna go to an organ or a gland effector.
Gland.
Organ.
Gland.
You're gonna go to the sweat gland, so that you secrete sweat, sweat, sweat. You sweat, so you cool off. Is that clear? So this is how your nervous system works. So now, let us classify our nervous system. Well, so far, we know that this box in the middle here, that's your control, processing, and integration center. That's known as the CNS. Your control, processing, and integration center is known as the CNS. CNS means, not CNN, CNS means
Central nervous
Central Nervous System. Everybody got it? CNS means Central Nervous System. So your nervous system is divided into two systems. Central nervous system and raise your hand. Central nervous system and
sensory nervous system.
central nervous system and excellent, and peripheral nervous system. So the central nervous system is the central part that receives and sends out. So we already identified the central nervous system. We see it. It's the one in the middle. Things coming into it, things coming out of it. You know, like Grand Central. In Grand Central, all the subways are coming in and all of them are coming out. That's the central axis. But we don't only have central nervous system. We also need a peripheral nervous system. What's the peripheral nervous system? Yes.
The nervous system that's in the body that come from the body to the central nervous system.
Is that all? Yes. What did you say?
No, I agree with that.
Okay. Please.
Yeah, the channels. That's connects the sensory.
So Barrington said that the peripheral nervous system is all the information that come in. That's the peripheral nervous system. Is that all?
No, it goes out to
Out to.
Yeah.
So you gotta say that too. So because there's disease with some people, stuff coming in is okay, but they cannot get stuff out. Or some people they have the opposite. They can get things out, but they cannot get things in. So you gotta say both. Very good. So peripheral nervous system is the black in and out, and the brown in and out. So input sensory afferent somatic, output motor efferent somatic. That's one division of the peripheral nervous system. And input sensory afferent visceral coming in, and output motor efferent visceral coming out. Is that clear? Okay. So that's our peripheral nervous system. So now let us make our chart. Let us make our very important chart. Let us make our very important chart. So what are we learning? We're learning about the nervous system. So that goes at the top. The nervous system. And we're going to be studying the nervous system from two perspectives, 1 and 2. Perspective number 1, we have perspective number 1, and we have perspective number 2. Those are the two perspectives that we always study all the systems in anatomy and physiology. What's the name of the first perspective we use to study the nervous system?
The nervous system?
Anatomy,
Anatomy and physiology.
which means structure. We're going to be looking at the structure of our nervous system. And we're also going to be looking at the physiology, meaning the function of the nervous system. We're going to be looking at both the structure and the function of the nervous system. So, for example, if I tell you there is a school that has a big basement, a first floor, and a second floor. That's all I told you. A school has a big basement and a first floor and a second floor. This classification I just told you, is it structural or functional? Yes.
Structural?
Structural, because I only told you the structure. There's a basement, first floor, and a second floor. Did I tell you on the basement there's a parking lot? Did I tell you on the basement there's a cafeteria?
No.
Did I tell you on the basement there's the electric power generators or bathrooms? I never told you the function of the basement. I just told you there's a basement. I just told you there is a basement. Did I tell you on the first floor there is bursar, there is human resources, there's administration? I didn't tell you. Did I tell you on the second floor there is the learning halls, the classrooms, the laboratories? I never told you what's the function. So always, let's break down all of our systems like we always do from a structure, and a function. So the structure of our nervous system is going to be divided into two structures. What are the two structures of our nervous system? What's structure number 1 and what's structure number 2? Structure number 1 is, thank you, is the CNS. CNS, standing for Central Nervous System. And number 2, we have PNS, also known as Peripheral Nervous System. Central Nervous System and Peripheral Nervous System. Central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. Okay, the central nervous system itself is divided into two compartments. Your central nervous system itself is divided into two compartments. What are the two compartments of the central nervous system? Yes.
ANS and SNS?
What is ANS and SNS?
Automatic nervous system and I forgot.
Yes,
The brain is spinal cord.
the brain and the spinal cord. So the central nervous system is made up of, number 1, the brain, and number 2, the spinal cord. Those are the two structures of my nervous system. So my is made up of, that's my brain, That's my brain. And that is my spinal cord. That is my brain, and that is my spinal cord. That's my brain, and that is my spinal cord. Everybody see the brain and the spinal cord? Those are the two main structures. The brain itself is made up of three structures. 1, 2, and 3. This brain here is made up of three structures. Structure number 1, structure number 2, structure number 3. Structure number 1, structure number 2, and structure number 3. So what is your brain made up of? Your brain is made up of, first of all, that very big part that everybody knows of. If you type the word, if you put the word brain on your text message, what will pop up in pink? That big structure that pops up in pink, that is your forebrain. It's called forebrain. F-O-R-E, brain. That's the forebrain, aka the cerebrum. That's your brain or the cerebrum. Cerebrum. The second part is the cerebellum. Cerebellum. And the last part is the brain stem. The brain stem. The brain stem. So the brain is made up of the brain, the cerebrum. Number 1 is the cerebrum. Number 2, cerebellum. And number 3, the brain stem. Brain stem. Your spinal cord is made up of the anterior horn. It has 2 horns. Anterior horn and posterior horn. Do you get it? Anterior horn and posterior horn. The peripheral nervous system is made up of nerves that supply both. Because you're coming in the central nervous system, so you're going to have cranial nerves, meaning those are nerves that are coming in and out of the brain. The brain. Cranial nerves are nerves that are coming in and out of the brain. And spinal nerves, those are nerves that are coming in and getting out of the spinal cord. Very good. Cranial nerves and spinal nerves. So now when we look at the physiology, now we continue with the physiology. The physiology of the nervous system is that number 1, it has a central nervous system. The central nervous system function is to do what? The brain and the spinal cord, what do they do? The brain and the spinal cord.
Yeah, the one that interpret and process.
Yes, I like that. Interpretation. Interpretation. Processing. Control. Integration. That's all true. That is all very true. And what does the peripheral nervous system do? The peripheral nervous system does what? What does the peripheral nervous system do?
send and receive messages.
Send and receive messages. So the peripheral nervous system, it has two systems, system number 1 and system number 2. System number 1 is the input sensory afferent. That's the first system. Input sensory afferent. And the second system is
Output motor,
very good. Output motor efferent. Input sensory afferent, output motor efferent. The input sensory afferent is itself made up of what? Look in the chart there, in the other board. The input sensory afferent is made up of two divisions. 1, 2. What are the two divisions we can have input? Excellent. So we have one system is somatic and one system is? Very good. What about the output? The output also has two systems. 1 and 2.
Somatic and visceral.
Excellent. Somatic and visceral. You guys got it. Very good. So there is somatic visceral and somatic visceral output. Are you clear? I hear some of you can't help but say the automatic nervous system, the automatic nervous system. Do you know, I never mentioned that since we started. I never mentioned that. But if you are in a hurry to know, it's not called the automatic. It's called the autonomic. Autonomic, not automatic. It is automatic, by the way, but it's not called automatic. It's called autonomic. And which one is it? It's this one here. This is your autonomic nervous system. Right here in blue. That's your autonomic nervous system. That is your autonomic nervous system. That's your autonomic nervous system.
I was right, just too fast.
You just do what?
No, because I said that earlier, and that's where I wanted it to say, but it was too ahead from where you were saying.
So this is the autonomic nervous system. Is the output,
But I'm not confused.
motor, efferent, visceral. Okay? Any questions?
No.
Alrighty. So this is an overview. You need to understand that we're going to be talking about receptors who will send out input, we get processed by the brain and the spinal cord. Don't forget that the central nervous system is divided into brain. Number 1 is brain, and number 2 is the spinal cord. And those two lines coming in and getting out, there's cranial nerves. So we have two types of cranial nerves. What are they? We have two types of cranial nerves. What would they be? We have two types of cranial nerves. What do you think they would be? What are the two types of cranial nerve?
One is neuron.
What's a cranial nerve? It's a nerve that has to report to who?
Your brain.
Brain.
Your brain, not the spinal cord. Spinal cord is a
Spinal nerve?
spinal nerve that reports to the spinal cord. So a cranial nerve is either coming into the brain, bringing input sensory afferent stimulation, or
Going out of the
going out of the brain. Output motor efferent stimulation. Are we clear?
Yes.
Questions?
So that's the two types,
There's a two type.
input and output.
Exactly. And then the two types have two types too. Because the one that's coming in, that is somatic and sensory. So cranial nerves are two. Input, like here. Cranial nerves are input and output nerves. You have cranial nerves, input sensory afferent to the brain, and output motor efferent from the brain. And even coming in, you have somatic ones coming from your cheeks muscle of the face. That's tough tissue, right? And you also have visceral, like your eyes, your smell. Those are visceral input. And there is output also. And sometimes there's mixed nerves that do both, do sensory and output. So that's the major overview of what we're going to be doing. So now let's go over the PowerPoint slides and pinpoint all the important. So before that, I want to, before we go into, so everybody wrote this down, right?
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay. So we have to remember something that's very important. We're going to be looking also at the spinal cord. So, all right, if you didn't get this, go online on the YouTube. You will find everything that I'm recording now. I always post it for you after class. So just go to it after class. You will find everything, and whatever that you were missing, you can complete it, and then you upload the photo. Let's now look at our spinal cord. That's the spinal cord. First of all, you have your brain. That's your brain. That's your brain. And we said that the brain is itself made up of how many parts? How many parts make up the brain? Three. The first one is this very big, conspicuous, obvious one that everybody can see and tell is the brain. What do we call that one?
Cerebrum.
That is the cerebrum. Cerebrum. It has another name besides cerebrum. What is that?
Forebrain.
Forebrain. And there's another part known as it's like right in the back here. It looks like a cauliflower. Looks like a cauliflower. Looks like a cauliflower. It sits right in the back here. What's the name of this cauliflower-like structure?
Cerebellum.
That's the cerebellum. That's the cerebellum.
Can I say something really quick?
Yes.
That marker's horrible. I can't see it good.
Okay. So you know what I mean? Cerebellum. Okay. Cerebellum. That is our cerebellum.
Yes.
Cerebellum. And we have besides the cerebellum, we have a part that enters like that. It looks like this. This part here, what do we call that? This is known as the third part, or the brain. That's the brain stem. It looks like a root, like a brain root, but they call it the brain stem. You got the three parts of the brain? Then your whole brain is locked and covered by a very strong helmet. A very strong helmet. What's the name of this very, very, very strong helmet that is all around covering your brain?
The skull.
What do we call that? In blue, that is the
Skull.
skull. That is the skull. That is the bony skull. The bony skull. This bony skull is covering all of the brain.
I had a question.
Yeah.
I think it was during the skeletal tissue portion. What was it called for the skull? Because I know it's a different type of bone than the other bone. Does it still apply when we're talking about the nervous system? That name?
What do you mean?
Isn't there a specific name for the type of bone that the skull is? Does that still apply to the nervous system as well?
The spongy bone.
Spongy bone?
Is that
No,
what
no, no. That's the so there's you just need to know there's a helmet, this blue helmet around the brain. Just don't worry about anything else now. Just this is the bony helmet around the skull is protecting your brain. And the helmet ends with a hole here. Through this hole comes out your
spinal cord?
spinal cord. What's the name of this hole? Throughout comes out your spinal cord. What's the name of this hole here?
Is that me there?
What's the name of the hole through which the hole in a skull? The hole in the skull through which the spinal cord comes out.
Vertebrae.
No, the vertebral column is the covering around, the covering that goes all the way around your spinal cord, because they both have a covering. Your brain has a skull around it, and your spinal cord has a vertebral canal. So the vertebral canal is to your spinal cord the same as your skull to the brain. Does that make sense? So the skull protects the brain, and the vertebral column protects your spinal cord. But both of them, the skull and here the vertebral column, both of them communicate, but there's an opening, a hole here connecting the skull to the vertebral column through which the spinal cord comes out. The name of this hole is called the foramen magnum, meaning the huge foramen, the huge hole, because out of this huge hole, who comes out? The spinal cord. You guys clear? Now, if you look at the spinal cord, you see the spinal cord is made up of two horns. See the two horns? Two horns pointing up and two horns pointing down. You see two horns pointing up and two horns pointing down. You see the two horns pointing up and two horns pointing down?
Yes.
The two horns pointing up are different from the two horns pointing down. That's why I drew them in different colors. Two horns pointing up are different from the two horns pointing down. First of all, let's name them. What do we call the two horns pointing up?
Anterior horn?
Those are the back. No, those are the posterior horns because they are in the back. Those are posterior horn, also known as dorsal horn, also known as back horn. In the back, yeah.
So for this part that you just drew, for the horns, the direction that we're looking at, the blue part is front and back, or is it
No,
front and
the
back?
blue part, it looks front and back because I'm drawing it. But this, we cut it like a hot dog and you're looking inside it.
Okay.
And then this is the back. This is the back part.
So like the two.
And this is the
go
front part.
This way, like it'll be split like that in a sense.
And the front one is called the anterior. That's the anterior horn. Anterior horn. Anterior means frontal. It means also ventral. So if anybody tells you dorsal horn is the same thing as back horn, posterior horn. If they tell you anything about frontal horn, it's the same thing as anterior horn and
Ventral.
ventral horn. So now what you need to know is that you have nerves that come in the back horn, come into the back horn, and get out of the front horn. You can help me now to tell me, what are these nerves? You have nerves that are coming in from the back and getting out the front. And this is happening on both sides. That's happening on both sides. This is happening on both sides. That's happening on the both sides. Information coming in the backside and getting out of the front side. 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 Are we clear? Who can tell me what are the blue spinal nerves represent?
Input.
Input, very good. So they're coming from who?
Brain.
Receptor, sensor, detector, going into the back, and they get processed, and then they come out the front, and you have output going to the effector. Clear? Okay. That's the gist of what we're going to be covering today. Okay. So everybody, let's go to the PowerPoint.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So let's first identify our nervous tissue And we know that the endocrine system and the nervous system work together. So the nervous system is going to be sending out a neurotransmitter like acetylcholine, and the neurotransmitter, once it binds the neurotransmitter receptors on the muscle, that would lead to a muscular contraction. That's why we have a neuromuscular system. And the neuromuscular system is a system where both the nervous system and the muscle work together, and that is because the hormones, acetylcholine, cause the muscle to contract. And acetylcholine is secreted because of a nerve ending being stimulated by an action potential. And then the acetylcholine is secreted in the synapse, but it binds postsynaptic acetylcholine receptors that are found on the muscle. So the nervous system receives stimuli, we discussed that, from the external environment and transmit it to the central nervous system. But the central nervous system processes, integrates the information, and determines the response. The central nervous system issues a command to the muscle and the gland cells to carry out the response. The central nervous system is made up of the brain and the spinal cord. And the peripheral nervous system is made up of nerves and ganglia, but both of them are responsible for sensory and motor output. The nerves are bundles of nerve fibers wrapped in fibrous connective tissue, and the ganglia are not like swelling in a nerve where the neuron cell bodies are found. So we have sensory afferent division. We talked about that. We have a sensory afferent input division, and itself is divided into two. Remember? Input sensory afferent division, that is divided into two lines. One is somatic sensory division, and the other one is visceral and sensory division. So you see now the somatic division carries the signals from receptors in the skin. You see the skin and the muscles are somatic. Skin, the bones, and the joints. And the visceral sensory division carries signals from the viscera, the heart, the lungs, the stomach, and the urinary bladder. The central nervous system, if you look now, is divided into the brain and the spinal cord. But the peripheral nervous system, you see, we have a input afferent sensory division and output motor efferent. You gotta say all three. We have a sensory input afferent division and a motor output efferent division. The sensory input afferent division itself is divided into two lines coming in. One is visceral sensory afferent input, and one is somatic sensory afferent input. The motor one is, it has somatic motor output to the efferent, and the visceral, that's what we said is known as the visceral motor output efferent system is known as what? Remember I drew it in blue. The coming out, visceral motor efferent output. What do we call that? Yes, that's the autonomic nervous system. And the autonomic nervous system itself is divided into three. Number one, sympathetic nervous system. That's the one for fight or flight. When you're being chased by a bulldog, being chased by a lion, when you're anxiety and fear and you're running for your life to survive. That's the survival system. Sympathetic means survival. Parasympathetic means rest and digest. Rest and digest. rest and digest. Enteric plexus means what? Enteric. That's the nervous system branch of the autonomic nervous system that's responsible for regulating food and appetite. So enteric, you know, they say whenever you hear enteric, that means intestine. So enterocolitis is whenever there is an inflammation of the intestine that leads to diarrhea. So you see now the enteric plexus, then the parasympathetic division, and then there's the sympathetic division. Universal properties. So 3 properties allow the neurons to communicate with other cells. So how do we know that this particular neuron is alive, is not dead? Number one, the excitability. That the neuron has to be able to undergo a membrane electric voltage change and mediate the passage and the transfer of this membranous voltage, electric voltage change. So the ability to respond to the stimuli, and conductivity is to propagate like a dominoes effect, like a dominoes falling on each other. So the electrons are going to keep moving, and the depolarization is going to carry on down the axon. Secretion. When a signal reaches the end of the axon, like I was telling you, in the end of the synaptic bouton, at the end of the synaptic dendrite, what happens is there's going to be a neurotransmitter like acetylcholine that's going to be secreted out to cause the ultimate contraction, the binding of acetylcholine to the postsynaptic acetylcholine receptors. Now, this is very important. You see that there are 3 classes of neurons. Everybody look here. You see a finger, you see a brain, and you see a muscle. You can tell me that there's a loop, something coming out of the finger to the brain, and something coming out of the brain to the muscle. So, number 1, sensory afferent input neuron conducts signal from the receptor. What kind of receptor was that?
Nociceptor.
Yes, so that could be a nociceptor if it's sending out pain. Could be also a thermoreceptor because your tip could also feel heat. Could also be mechanoreceptor if you shake somebody's hands. And when you're coming out of the nervous system, you go to who? You go to the muscle, the effector. There is a neuron in the middle here. What's the name of that neuron? Number 2. What is the name of this neuron? That's called an interneuron. That is called an interneuron. It's a neuron that is inside the brain compartment. So that's like you call the center, but the center doesn't call out the cops. They call out the 3rd floor first, and then the 3rd floor calls you. So don't think that you just call the 911 center and 911 center call the cop for you. No, 911 center is multiple buildings. There's a robbery and homicide, there is check fraud, there is different divisions, right? So they receive a phone call from you, they can call each other, and then they can send out a signal. So in your brain, the same thing. In your spinal cord, the same thing. We don't only have neurons coming in and neurons coming out. We also have neurons mediating in the middle, throughout, the middleman. Those are called interneurons. Interneurons are found where? In the building of the central processing center, inside. They don't get out. They don't come out. They're only on the inside. Okay. So the neuron, you need to know what a neuron is made up of. The neuron has a cell body. So let's look here. If you look at something like that, you know that this is a neuron because it has a cell body. That's the cell body, and those are the dendrites. See, those are the dendrites. The information flows from the dendrite to the cell body. The cell body of the neuron is the control, processing, and integration center. And then what comes out to the axon, the very long nerve axon, all the information flows out. And then when we reach the synaptic axon terminals, we reach the synaptic axon terminals. We reach the synaptic axon terminal.
Are the axon terminals the input-output line?
So the axon terminals are the ones that are gonna pass the action potential to the next neuron. So the neurons are the ones who are mediating the sensory input.
So the axon terminal tells the other neurons to kind of work as a group to get the message.
The axon terminal is the end of a neuron that passes the action potential to the next axon. So the axons, if they want to pass out a sensory input signal, they are in a row, one after the other. Like, you know, the train tracks?
I'm gonna say they kind of go the same.
The train tracks, you know how the trains are all locked like that? So all these train tracks, they are one after the other. So remember I said it's like a dominoes effect.
Okay.
So what happens is the electric stimulation passes through, the action potential is passing through, it goes from the beginning of one neuron and passes, it begins from a dendrite, it goes into the cell body, passes through the axon, and then gets to the dendrites, then another neuron just like that waiting right here. So it receives another stimulation and it passes it. So this arrow here is traveling like that through multiple neurons, one after the other, one after the other. Clear?
Yeah.
Question.
Yeah.
That dendrite up top and the bottom end is axon terminal.
The bottom is?
Yeah, the bottom of every trio. Yeah, that's axon terminal, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So the dendrite is where you enter the information to the neuron, and then the dendrite where you enter the neuron, and the terminal is when it leaves to the next neuron. So the information passes from one neuron to the next.
So it goes to another dendrite.
Yes, it goes to another dendrite. There you go. Very good. So from a terminal, it goes to another dendrite, cell body, axon, terminal, dendrite, cell body, axon, terminal. It keeps on going like that. Very good. So one after the other. So that shows you here, that's the dendrite where all the action potential come in. The cell body processes the information, and then we get out all of the action potentials. And you see here, you get to this is the axon. And please remember something very important. If you look at the axon, do you see these balloons, these bubbles around the axon, those blue colored structures wrapped around the axon, blue colored structures wrapped around the axon? What do we call those blue structures wrapped around the axon?
Myelin sheath.
That's the myelin sheath. That's very important. What is myelin sheath made up of? Is it made up of sugar? Is it made up of protein? Is it made up of lipid fat? Is it made up of nucleic acids? Yeah.
Lipid fat?
Yes, it's made up of lipids. So why is there a lot of wrapping around the nerve axon? Yes?
Because it's passing electrical charge as the messages. If it doesn't have that lubrication, then I don't know exactly what will happen actually. Now that I'm talking.
So don't raise your hand. So let somebody else raise their hand if you don't know.
I was saying.
Okay, it's all right. Yes.
The myelin sheath help the the nerve to send information faster.
Yeah, it helps it faster. It helps the speed. Why the speed? Raise your hand if you know. Why is the speed going faster if there is myelin sheath? Because it jumps. You see those? You see those? You see those? No. What do we call those? What do we call those here? What do we call those? You see when you make a myelin sheath, you see some areas are empty. Everybody look here. Everybody look. The myelin sheath is not all over the axon.
No.
The myelin sheath is not like all over. Some areas are intentionally left bare. They are naked. They don't have myelin sheath wrapped around them. Those are called the nodes. Nodes. Those are called the nodes. The nodes. Those are called the nodes of Ranvier. The nodes of Ranvier.
Yeah.
So Barrington said half of the answer. Who can complete the rest of the answer? Why is it faster for the action potential to flow through a myelinated axon than an axon that doesn't have myelin? Are every axons have myelin around them? No. But the ones that do have myelin, the action potential travels a lot faster through them. So now, who can make a connection? Okay, because the action potential is jumping, is hopping from one node of Ranvier to the next node of Ranvier. It's not going in a row. So for example, let's say I need to get to the wall. And I have to go step by step to get to the wall. I have to go step by step to touch the wall. Am I gonna get there faster if I go step by step, or if I start hopping to get to the wall?
Hopping.
Exactly. You see now how fast the myelin sheath helps the action potential arrive because it hops from one node to another. Yeah.
This is the brain. What are we talking about?
We're talking about the neuron. We're talking about the general
Okay.
structure of a neuron. That's the neuron, the nerve.
Yeah.
So this is if you see now, the nodes of Ranvier are important. Some people have a disease. Listen to me very careful. Some people have a disease where the immune system is peeling off like a banana,
Oh, the skin.
is peeling off the myelin sheath. So all of the myelin sheath around the axon is getting ripped out, is getting removed. What do you think is going to happen to these people? Speed of understanding and receiving sensory input, integration, processing, control, generating afferent output. What's going to be? Yeah.
They're not gonna get it as fast as us because they won't.
Is going to be very, very, very slow because there is no nodes of Ranvier and no myelin sheath. What's the name of that disease?
Sir?
Down syndrome?
No, not Down syndrome. Down syndrome is not when you
Oh,
remove.
chromosome.
So
It is
when
so.
you remove, when you peel off the act, and remember who's peeling them off? Your own immune system. You know your own immune system can target the pancreas. That's how juvenile diabetes is. Diabetes type 1. Diabetes type 1 is when your own immune system destroys the pancreas islets of Langerhans. It can also target the myelin sheath. That one is called multiple sclerosis.
Yeah. Multiple sclerosis. Yeah.
Multiple sclerosis. Multiple sclerosis is when your own immune system is peeling off the, yeah.
So with multiple sclerosis, because I know it as more of a physical thing, but then you're saying like it would be a mental thing as far as like processing. Would that be one of the things, like the process of the input sensory afferent going to the brain, and like that process of saying like move your hand like this is making
Even their hand movement is slow because the output is slow. Because remember, your neuron, your nerve axons are doing everything. They're doing sensory input afferent, output motor efferent. sensory input afferent, output motor efferent, and all peeled off. So the input sensory awareness is not gonna be fast, and the output generation is not gonna be fast, and the processing is not gonna be fast. If a bulldog comes in the room charging, we will all run. Somebody with multiple sclerosis, it will take them a long time to understand, a long time to start running away, a long time to actually do the process of escaping. So that's the general structure of a neuron under the microscope, and the fixated on the slide, and that shows you the cell body. And you see here, that's the neuron, and that's the Schwann cell. Schwann cell is the cell that makes the myelin sheath around the axon of the axon of a neuron that is found in the peripheral nervous system. You know we have two nervous systems, right? Peripheral nervous system and central nervous system. Peripheral nervous system has axon neurons that are myelinated, and central nervous system also has axons myelinated too. But the peripheral nervous system is myelinated with axons by Schwann cells. What's the name of the cell that makes myelin around the axons of neurons in the peripheral nervous system, not the central? Schwann cells. What's the name of the cells that makes myelin sheath around the axons that are not on the peripheral nervous system, on the central nervous system? What do we call those?
Anginian, Gill,
Yeah, you close, yeah. Yes, please, raise your hand. Oligodendrocytes, very good. Those are oligodendrocytes. Very good. Okay. You see those are you see the dendrite information coming in, that's the nucleus, the cell body, and it shows you different types of neurons. These are multipolar neurons. They have multiple dendrites. But in the end, the structure may be different, but you gotta have all three. Dendrites, you gotta have the cell body, and you gotta have the synaptic terminal. Some of them are called anaxonic neurons, meaning they don't have an axon because they're only there for processing. You see, this is unipolar, has one pole. Anaxonic, it has no axon. Now you need to remember something very important, that your nervous system is not only made up of neurons. So for example, look at this college now. Does this college only have professors and students?
No.
Well, we are the most important too, because without us there wouldn't be a college.
Right.
So you gotta have students and you gotta have professors. But does that mean there's no public safety? Does that mean there's no cafeteria? Does that mean there's no sanitation? Does that mean there's no human resources, HR? Does that mean there is no admission? So there's many things that are supported. So there are supportive cells of your nervous system. These are called, you see, the supportive cell. Was the neuron a supportive cell? No, that was not a supportive cell. That was the cell that actually does the job of the sensory stimulation, motor output. Yes?
Myelin sheath will be a supporting cell?
Myelin sheath is not a cell. The cell who makes myelin sheath, like Schwann cell or oligodendrocyte, that's a supportive cell, absolutely. So that shows you here the astrocyte is an example of a supportive cell. That's the police. That's the public safety of the nervous system, the astrocytes. You have the ependymal cells, they secrete the cerebrospinal fluid. And you have the oligodendrocyte. You see the oligodendrocytes, everybody? They make the axons around they make the axon, myelin sheath around the central nervous system, neurons. And then you have the microglia. Those are also like macrophages. So there are cells that are there for supportive function. You need to remember that your brain itself, can your brain undergo mitosis? Can your brain, if your skin is damaged, you get new skin?
Yeah.
If your bone is broken, it heals, you get new bone. But if your brain is damaged, do you get new brain? No, it doesn't. So your brain is called terminally differentiated.
Vegetable.
your brain is in a state of quiescence, terminal quiescence. Some other tissues is not, like the skin, like we said, not all the tissues are in a terminal quiescence. Some are regenerative,
Right.
some are non-regenerative. So your brain is non-regenerative. But, yes,
Is the pancreas also one of those organs that are terminally quiescent?
quiescent from quiet, quiescent. So that means, so the pancreas is a form of non-regenerative. It doesn't like make like more. So once it's damaged, just like the heart too. So why we have a heart attack. Heart attack means the heart tissue died.
That's why they gotta take the pancreas off one time.
And the brain, if you have a brain damage, the brain tissue died. So the question is, how come we get to have brain cancer? Because brain cancer means that there is uncontrollable. What does cancer mean? What does cancer mean? Cancer means uncontrollable cell division. Uncontrollable cell division. Uncontrollable cell division.
So it's just breaking down.
Well, if your brain is uncontrollable cell division, that means it's.
Producing.
So how does it do that? Well, we know the neurons are terminally differentiated. It is not the neurons. It is the supportive cells. These guys, they can enter the cell cycle. The astrocytes, the microglia, the oligodendrocytes. And once they enter the cell cycle, it gets messed up, then they get cancer, and then cancer gets passed to the neurons. And then it spreads. Very good. Yes?
What's that, ependymal?
Ependymal cell is an example of a supportive cell in your nervous system that is responsible for secreting and making the cerebrospinal fluid. That's the fluid that is bathing around your brain, the spinal cord, giving it buoyancy, protecting it from shock, and providing nutrient support for your nervous system. Okay, Schwann cells, we talked about them. Those are the cells that envelop the axons of the peripheral nervous system, not the central nervous system. Satellite cells surround the cell bodies in ganglia of peripheral nervous system. They provide insulation around the cell body and regulate the chemical environment. If you look at here, that's the tumor. Why did this tumor happen? The tumor happened because
Uncontrollable cell division.
uncontrollable cell division of who?
Of the brain.
Of the
Supporting.
supportive cell, and then it spread into the actual neurons. Very good. Okay. So myelin sheath, we said, is very important, and you see here this wrapping around like saran wrap going around the axons, and you say the more myelinated, the more we're gonna be hopping over the nodes of Ranvier, and faster the information will get. You see now, this is the process of myelination.
Professor,
Yeah.
who came up with that name?
Which
Of
name?
the Ranvier.
He was the guy who discovered them.
Ranvier, right?
His name was Ranvier.
I kind of figured. I'm like, that's
Yeah.
that's the name.
Yeah, so they named him. They named after him. So, and remember now, that's the oligodendrocyte. It's doing the same thing that who else is doing?
Schwann?
Schwann cell, but it's happening in different regions, like LAPD, NYPD. They're doing the same thing in two different places. One is in New York, one is in LA.
So that's the central nervous system.
Yeah.
The other one's peripheral.
Exactly. So Schwann cells are wrapping the myelin around the axons of neurons in the peripheral nervous system, while the oligodendrocytes are wrapping the myelin sheath around the axons of the central nervous system. Multiple sclerosis. What did we say that?
The shredding of the
the myelin sheath so the oligodendrocytes and the myelin sheath in the central nervous system are gonna deteriorate. So now, and it's gonna be replaced by like scar tissue around the axon, and the cause may be an autoimmune disease. It's usually triggered by a virus. Sometimes a virus can mess up the autoimmune system. So these are unmyelinated axons. They have no myelin sheath around them.
Professor.
Yeah.
So if you see, like, for example, someone that has a scar on their liver, benign, what is that? Like, that has nothing to do with it.
What do you mean?
Like, like it's not cancer, but you see something on MRI and you see it's benign, meaning it's not cancerous. Why does that happen?
So benign, like what's the difference between a benign tumor and a cancerous tumor?
Yeah, benign is not. It's not necessarily a tumor because it's like you're healthy. It's just
No. You can have. There's two types of tumor.
Right.
There is a benign tumor, and there is a malignant tumor.
Malignant is
A
cancer.
benign tumor, yeah, malignant is cancer. Benign tumor is a tumor, meaning there is uncontrolled cell division. But think of it this way: inmates in prison, inmates. There's inmates in prison who are keeping to themselves. They want to spend their time and go back to society. And there are inmates who are troublemakers. Well, both are in there. Both are criminals. You're not in prison for no reason.
Right.
Well, my mom says there's many innocent people in prison. I agree. There's many innocent people in prison, but assuming that we have the best criminal justice system, we don't. But assuming if we do, all of the inmates committed crimes. They're all criminals, but some criminals are good criminals. They learn from their mistakes and they keep to themselves. It was just the environment was bad,
I get it.
making them become bad, but they're good on the inside. It's just peer pressure. And now they want to learn the mistake, go start a new life.
Right.
And some other inmates in prison, they stab somebody, they kill somebody, they do something bad. So same thing with benign and malignant
Like our
tumor.
bodies are gonna make tumors regardless.
So malignant tumors are like tumors that are going to travel far in the bloodstream and move from the brain to the spleen, from the spleen to the bone, from the breast tissue to the pancreas, from the liver to like that. They keep moving and destroy, and inflammation and necrosis and invasion and metastasis and destroy like that. But benign tumors, they increase the cell number, but is keeping to their own self.
They're behaving.
Is like when you have like a pituitary tumor, is only locked in the pituitary gland. It secretes a lot of growth hormone, making very big, huge, gigantic, like very big people.
Yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is benign. Is you do have uncontrollable cell division, but it's
Regulated.
regulated.
Yeah.
Very good. But if it's not benign, it's cancerous. It's not regulated. So if you want to regenerate the axon, that's how we heal the axon that rupture. We heal the axons that are part of the. You cannot heal the computer. You cannot heal the actual cell body, but you can heal the appendages, like the axons. So it heals by, you see, there is a trauma that is severing. That's the normal axon, looks like that. Then there's an injured axon with a severing or trauma. Then the macrophages come. Those macrophages are like the immune system. They're the police. Because whenever there's damage, there is a lot of bacteria and microbes that come through. So they start to destroy them and fight them. And like scissors, cut up all the destroyed edges and remove all of the damaged tissue so that they pave the path for the alternative pathway for healing. So degeneration of a severed axon is going to degenerate like that. And in early regeneration, you see this is the growth process and the healing, and then this one, so there's going to be an atrophy of the muscle fibers. You see this is the late generation, and we have retraction of growth processes, and this is the regeneration axon, and here you're going to have regrowth of muscle fibers. Okay. You need to remember that the action potential is all based completely on the resting membrane potential. You see now, sodium potassium influx, sodium potassium. So sodium, this is a sodium channel in orange, that's the potassium channel in blue. So the sodium channel opens and allows a lot of influx of sodium. And the potassium channel opens and allows a lot of efflux of potassium. This causes a depolarization. That causes a depolarization. So there are local potentials, and those local potentials, we talked about the depolarization, and you see now, as we said earlier, remember we talked about this earlier, that neurons, maybe they're not lined up like exactly like a train track, but they're all connected one after the other. So the flow of information goes from the dendrites into the cell body, then the trigger zone, and goes through the axon, jumping over the nodes of Ranvier, and then passing through the axon terminal. What's happening is there's an influx of sodium and an efflux of potassium. Influx of sodium and efflux of potassium. If you see now, those are the steps of the action potential. What happens first is that if a neuron is unstimulated, if a neuron has no stimulation, there is a resting membrane potential at -70. If you are at -70 millivolt, it means you are at resting membrane potential. Then once the sodium channel opens and you have an influx of sodium, sodium goes in,
It goes up.
and then the membrane voltage goes up. So now we go from -70 to -55. It means we're gaining a lot of potential, electric potential, millivoltage. Then once you hit the threshold is the minimum millivoltage that is needed to trigger an action potential. You see, if you have a gun and you press on the trigger, there is a certain particular threshold. Once you press that threshold, the bullet is gonna fire. Now it doesn't matter how hard you press the trigger anymore. That's it. You already hit the point, and then the bullet came out. It doesn't matter how hard you press no more.
Right.
So the minimum threshold for action potential is -55. Once you hit -55, the action potential is gonna overshoot.
Can
Yes.
that ever jam, like a gun you see when you try to shoot and it won't come out? Does that happen in that?
So
Like it won't, something happens that it doesn't hit.
no, it will not jam because
It will
the
always-
sodium channels open and sodium comes in. And when sodium coming in, we begin exactly going up from -70 up -60. You owe somebody 70,000. Now you pay 10,000. Now you owe them -60. Then you pay another more 15,000. Then you pay them. You pay 5 more thousand. That's -50. So now you're gaining. And then once you hit the threshold point, then it's gonna overshoot, and that's known as the depolarization. Once you hit the peak point, you're at the peak point of the depolarization. The depolarization is not gonna last forever. It needs to end. So now it's gonna go downhill. It's called repolarization. Students mix up. They think repolarization means going up. No, repolarization means going down. Depolarization goes up, repolarization goes down, and then when you go down, it means the action potential ended. Now we're gonna move to the next neuron. This happens again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Next neuron. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's why you see how it goes on the EKG? So it looks repeating like that. Yeah.
So this isn't necessarily like the action itself, but the message is going through each neuron to make the whatever the central nervous system is asking it to do, whatever
Yeah.
making it do. Like that's the message. That's the
Exactly.
way the message travels.
Exactly. Through electricity, through membrane voltage change. We hit the threshold, We fire, we return to baseline. We fire, we return to baseline. We fire, we return to baseline.
So that's the EKG.
That's just like the EKG.
So
And
you
then
want,
that's
in an
the-
EKG, you want everything to look
The
similar.
same.
So
Like-
once you see a pattern different, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
something happened there.
Exactly,
Okay,
exactly.
right.
So you don't want to see a flat line
No,
because
no.
it means we're not doing
Oh, like
the.
when they detect for a
But
heart
you see,
murmur.
you see the EKG when it goes like this?
Mhm.
This is, you want it high, right, high. If
You
it's
don't want
like-
it high.
No, if it's
You want
low,
it just
it's
like
that.
this. You
You
want
want
it.
it consistent.
You want it to be exactly repeatedly consistent. Minus 70, that's when we rest.
Okay,
Minus 55, that's the threshold. We shot the gun. Went up to the maximum 35. Then we return. Then we undershoot. We have an overshoot. Then we undershoot. That's the hyperpolarization.
Right.
Then we return back to baseline. Then again, we go up threshold, depolarization, repolarization, undershoot, hyperpolarization. Again, then you go up threshold, depolarization, repolarization, undershoot,
so
hyperpolarization.
it's like a pattern.
It shows, that's how your body talk to itself.
Yeah.
And they talk to each other, it's like they communicate with this electric action potential. Yeah.
So with MS, that would be basically, that on an inconsistent basis because the messages aren't going through properly through the channels? Like with MS, the main question I'm asking, is there an opposite disease of that where your body is passing the messages too fast?
Yeah,
Like where MS, where you said MS is like the messages aren't like sending
Multiple
us-
sclerosis.
Yeah.
Okay, so for
Is there an
multiple
opposite of that?
sclerosis, what's happening is you're not going, so this, for multiple sclerosis, this is happening on every single spot. We're not jumping it. For people who are normal, this is happening only where? At the nodes of
Brain-
Ranvier.
brain-
So for multiple sclerosis, it's happening like step by step.
Yeah.
Step, you're going step by step. You're not jumping.
their EKG looks different, right, than
It doesn't look different. It looks the same, but it looks a lot more.
more this.
Yeah, it looks a lot more.
Oh, yeah. More
Okay.
like,
And this is, please remember the steps of your action potential. The steps are the voltage gated ion channels open. So shows you that they are at minus 70. Remember minus 70 when they are at a normal resting potential. The resting membrane potential is minus 70. And then you open the channel. Upon reaching the threshold, the sodium channel opens and sodium enters. When sodium enters, the millivoltage keeps going up and up and up until we hit that threshold point, which is how much?
negative 55.
Negative 55. Very good. And then you see
Potassium
now,
makes it
and
repolarize.
then we close. Don't forget that one. So potassium does make it repolarize, but sodium has to shut down. So because remember, potassium is open while sodium is still open. It's gonna negate it. It's gonna nullify it. Yeah.
Is that why like people harp on like make sure you get your potassium in and things like that because it allows for the opening and closing of the
Sodium.
messages of the body? I've just always been told that potassium is like make sure you get potassium in your body, like it's a
Yeah, you need potassium, you need calcium, you need vitamins for your health, but potassium here is opening, not because there's potassium, it's opening because there is a membrane voltage. Because the sodium has opened and that caused the depolarization, and then the
I need to
sodium
take
is
it
gonna
out.
shut down and then potassium is gonna go up.
Yeah.
You see now potassium is gonna get out and then you see the red line dropping back in. And in fact,
because the sodium is coming in like that, it's kind of almost forcing the potassium. Like they're kind of one has to do with the other because sodium is doing that, potassium is doing that.
sodium is doing that, potassium is doing that.
Because the sodium is coming in, like you said, it's almost in a sense forcing the potassium to go out.
Okay, so if you see these two channels, one is orange, one is blue.
Yeah.
The orange one is sodium, the blue one is
Potassium.
potassium. So in the beginning, both are closed.
Right.
The first one that opens is
Sodium.
sodium. So sodium comes in, membrane voltage goes up, and
because of
then
that, potassium
if you
is
see
forced out.
here, sodium closes and then potassium influxes, and then when potassium influxes, it stays open a little bit more than it should. That's how we end up with the undershoot, with the hyperpolarization. And yeah, so that was the action potential. What you need to know is that when the action potential ends, it enters in something called an absolute refractory period, meaning that while the action potential is happening, you cannot make another action potential. You have to wait for it to end.
Oh, to come back down.
So you have to wait for it to come back down, then you can start it. Very good. So the red one is the absolute refractory period, meaning you absolutely can never generate another action potential. But for the yellow one, you have a relative refractory period, meaning if there is enough stimulation, heat, pressure, or any sensation, then it will. But it may not, meaning relative refractory period. But absolute meaning you will absolutely never get an action potential.
And you mean physical actual heat, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So if you look here, you have plus, that's sodium. Plus went in, that sodium went in. And then you see the action potential is propagating. Like remember the dominoes effect? So we keep moving, we keep moving, we keep moving. That's the relative period. And then there is the, after relative period, this is the absolute, then the relative, then there you have an excitable membrane. So you see, that's how the action potential keeps moving, and then if there is nodes of Ranvier, it's gonna be jumping over the nodes of the Ranvier. So there we go. You see here, this is the sodium inflow at the node. You see it's happening at the node, and then it travels fast. And so these are the nodes of Ranvier that help us. This is known as saltatory conduction. You see, this is where the saltatory conduction of a nerve signal in a myelinated axon. Synaptic relationships between the neurons. Now we're going to see how neurons communicate. Remember I told you how they're like a train track. They're always connected to each other. Yeah, some of them, but not all. So if you look at this one now,
It's temporary.
exactly. You see now, we have the cell body in the axon stimulating direct stimulation of a postsynaptic neuron. But here, you see that there is an axosomatic synapse, meaning that the dendrite did not go and stimulate the synaptic terminal did not go and stimulate a dendrite, stimulated the cell body directly. And you see those are the synapses. And you see this is the structure of the chemical synapse. You see those blue bubbles, they open up. And you see now, there's a lot of acetylcholine that is coming out from those bubbles. You see the action potentials arrive. You see, look at your neuron. That's the neuron. And this is the axon. That's the long axon. In the long axon, at the end, there is the synaptic terminal. In the synaptic terminal, there's those bubbles, vesicles that are full of acetylcholine. And then you see acetylcholine comes out and it's gonna bind to postsynaptic acetylcholine receptors. Now once the postsynaptic acetylcholine receptors are bound, you see, those are the neurotransmitters. We have acetylcholine is a neurotransmitter that is formed from acetic acid and choline. Amino acids include glycine, glutamate, aspartate, and gamma aminobutyric acid. The monoamines, those are the biogenic amines. They are synthesized from amino acids by the removal of the carboxylic terminal. Examples are the catecholamines, epinephrine, norepinephrine, and dopamine. Purines, those are the adenosine and ATP. Those are all important neurotransmitters. So the classes of some neurotransmitters. You see, we have acetylcholine, amino acids. Those are monoamine, biogenic monoamines. There are neuropeptides like the beta endorphins. Those are for and the enkephalin. Those are for the pain stimulation in the brain. Okay. Synapses are variable in their modes of action. So some neurotransmitters are excitatory and others are inhibitory. And sometimes a transmitter's effect differs depending on the type of receptor on the postsynaptic cell. So some receptors are ligand-gated ion channels, and others act through the intracellular second messenger system. Those are excitatory. Some neurotransmitters, when they bind to their postsynaptic terminal, they cause an excitation. And some of them, when they bind to their postsynaptic terminal, they cause an inhibition. So for example, what is more important? An excitatory neurotransmitter or an inhibitory neurotransmitter?
It depends.
The first one?
So think about it. If you get a chance, if you get
Or
a choice, what would you rather keep? Your excitatory synaptic transmission, both are important, by the way. I'm not saying that they're not, but one is more important than the other, absolutely.
Excitatory.
Is the excitatory more important, or is the inhibitory more important?
I don't know.
Raise your hand. Yes,
I would say excitatory.
excitatory.
Yeah.
So raise your hand if you think inhibitory is important.
Can I raise my hand for both?
So both are important, but one is more important than the other.
Yeah, that's why I can't decide
Yeah.
which is.
So don't worry if you can't decide.
Yeah.
So excitatory is the one that tells you cross the street.
Oh yeah, we need that.
And inhibitory is the one that tells you be careful as a car. That's why children, their inhibitory synapses are not fully developed. That's why they always get hit by the car, because they cannot time the inhibition in the right time. So the inhibitory synapses are more important. What's more important, the gas or the brake?
The brake. Yeah, you're
The
right.
gas is important too, but the brake is absolutely more important for your safety.
Yeah.
So usually the smart people are the people who hold back, who hold themselves back, who inhibit themselves. But stimulatory, impulsive people, they have no control. The people have no control
Yeah.
of their impulses. That's why they're always in trouble. You know, we talk about the inmates. Most of them is because there's no impulse control. You know, over the weekend, my dad and I were watching a documentary of a guy that this girl, she loved him so much she slashed his tires, and she wrote him a message saying, "You will never love somebody except me." Signed, "Your destiny, love always." And she was telling him that he was harassing him, so he killed her.
Oh no.
Okay, so and if she did all of that to you, you couldn't find another way. You see, those people, they have no impulse control.
For me, wait.
You know, one is black and the girl is Puerto Rican.
I'm the man.
But anyways, it's called. Look it up. It's called The Death of a Showgirl. My dad and I were both
The
watching
Death of
it.
a Showgirl? Is that a season?
Yeah, it was in Vegas. But anyways, those guys, they have no impulse control. Both of them, him and his girlfriend.
Yeah.
Because you can't slash somebody's tires and tell them, "I'm the love of your life, you have to accept me." And him, somebody slashed your tires, there's another better way to save yourself than killing that person. So you always have to work on inhibiting your neuron. Yes.
You are right with the inhibiting, because like, for example, when we judge people, right, and you go somewhere and you see, oh, ghetto, ratchet, how you're acting, right away you be like, oh, she has a low IQ. Like, and we don't know for sure because we're judging, because we can't literally say, here, take this test that you could pass. But, like you said, how do people eventually learn from that? Like, it's your environment where you're placed, people you're around, right?
Yeah.
People, places,
Yeah,
and
you
things.
learn to think
Right,
the way people around you
right,
accept.
because some people are
life.
like that and they change.
Yeah.
For example, like when we met and I blew up and we had a bad, you know, it was wrong or whatever. But I shut up. No, for real. I shut up and I told myself,
I have no recollection.
listen to me. The old Natalie would have, listen, you don't want to know. But I said, I'm here to learn. And if I mess this up for me, I'm messing this up for me.
Okay,
You're
that's
not.
good. I'm glad.
Get it? I learned from that.
Okay, that's good. Good, Natalie. Yes.
Something just came to my mind.
The Death of a Showgirl.
No, it's about the excitatory and the inhibitory. I remember psychology. That would be like
It's better to stay single.
it would be like the id and the ego, right?
Uh-huh.
Our Bible will be like the flesh and the soul. the flesh would be the excitatory, and the soul is the inhibitory. And the soul is supposed to control the flesh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, very good. You're supposed to control. You're supposed to have inhibitory. Work on your inhibitory synapses, and you have to be like in command of your impulses, and you have to be in command of your decisions, and you have to be very careful. Don't be like that guy.
Yeah.
That guy is not smart. You cannot kill somebody because they harassed you. You have to call the cops. They will help you. Make an input signal. Make an input. Raise your hand if you made an input signal to the 911 center in the past 1 month.
Two.
Oh, wow.
2 months now, not twice.
Wow. Yeah, so you see, you're smart now. You make an input signal, they will send the effector. Let the effector deal with it, not you.
I'm not a man.
And you know what is the best input command you make? To God. You make an input command to God, say, God, settle the score with that person for me on my behalf. They will settle it for you.
Amen.
God will settle it for you. Okay, but now you get it, right? So inhibitory signals. But you remember, you need to know that stimulatory, inhibitory is because of the neurotransmitter. If the neurotransmitter is stimulatory, it binds, you will have a stimulation. If you have a inhibitory neurotransmitter, it will cause an inhibition. Who are your neurostimulators? Those are those are known as the excitatory cholinergic and adrenergic synapses. While the GABA, those are the inhibitory. So for example, somebody who suffers from seizure, do you think they have a lot of inhibitory or a lot of stimulatory?
Stimulatory.
A lot of stimulatory neurotransmitter. So their medication is going to be what? Inhibitory. Very good. So they're going to be taking a lot of GABA or choline.
GABA.
They're going to be taking a lot of GABA because GABA is going to shut it down. Very good, very good. very
Wait,
good.
well, how do you say that? GABA or
GABAergic, yeah.
these words?
GABAergic. So
My favorite word so far is this one.
Medulla
Medulla
oblongata.
oblongata.
medulla oblongata. All right, these are the GABAergic synapses. There's the GABA-aminobutyric acid, the neurotransmitter. The excitation triggers the release of the GABA into the synaptic cleft. The GABA receptors are choline channels, and the choline entry, the chloride entry, is going to hyperpolarize the postsynaptic membrane. You see here, this shows you the transmission of the adrenergic synapse. Now this one is stimulatory because you need, listen, don't think that your stimulation is not good, because when a bulldog comes in, charges at you, you don't need GABA, because if you have GABA stimulated during a pit bull attack, you're going to be just standing still. But you need the adrenergic. That's why they say adrenaline rush. Adrenaline rush because of the adrenergic stimulation, so that you're running for your life, and then you escape. Yeah.
There's people that are like that naturally, that they just a little slower. You know, they don't react. Somebody
yeah.
will hit them and they just like,
Yeah, it
they don't have
happens.
no
Some
violence, they
people-
don't-
Some people are like that. So it may not only be the
That's
myelin
sad,
sheath,
that's
it could be something else. Yeah.
But just saying, it's not good to run from a bulldog.
It's not good? Really?
No. They think that you're playing with
You
them.
should stop and kick him on the throat.
Not the
Really?
throat, the nose.
Okay, so the next time I get chased by a bulldog, I'm gonna remember Barrington. Don't run.
No, just kick
In that moment, I'm not gonna remember. I'm just gonna be running.
Punch him in the nose. You punch him in the nose.
You think in that moment said, hold on, let me remember. BCC, I had a student barking. He said, don't run from the bulldog. Kick him in the throat. I'm gonna be running for my life. But yeah, you're right.
The pit bull's jaws, their jaw is locked, so you're assed up. When pit bull bites you,
That's why you gotta punch them in the nose.
you gotta put your finger.
Or put
Let
your
go.
finger
No,
in
for
their-
real.
Yeah, you gotta put your finger in their butt. It makes them let go.
I'm not putting my finger in his butt.
Their jaw locks.
I would rather them bite my whole body and eat my whole arm than put my finger in the butt.
I
of the
think
dog.
I'll bite his ear when he's biting me.
Ouch! No.
I will bite the dog's ear.
Okay. Neuromodulators. So what are neuromodulators? Those are chemicals secreted by neurons that have long-term effects. Nitric oxide is a simple neuromodulator. Remember those enkephalins and endorphins? They are able to like relax you, and they are the ones that are always in the drugs that the people take, the enkephalins
opioids?
and the opioids, yeah. Okay. Talk about the postsynaptic potential, the GABA, the terminal spatial summation. Okay, this is the facilitation, meaning that two neurons can stimulate the same postsynaptic terminal. Presynaptic inhibition, meaning that a neurotransmitter can inhibit another neuron from communicating to the terminal neuron. Neural pools, those are functional groupings of neurons. Each pool consists of thousands of interneurons concerned with a particular body function. Reverberating circuits, those are neurons stimulating each other in linear sequence, but one or more of the later cells stimulates the first cell to start the process all over. The parallel after discharge circuit, you have an input neuron that diverges to stimulate several chains of neurons. You see, Alzheimer's disease is when there is a terminal defect in the parenchyma. There's a neurodegeneration,
Shrinks.
age-related degeneration, and there is like a, you see, when you get so old, your brain is gonna start to lose its ability to get rid of all the toxics and the improperly folded neuron, improperly folded proteins, and the system of recycling. You know, your brain has a system of recycling all of the metabolites, all of the misfolded proteins, improperly folded proteins. So as you get older and you accumulate a lot of mutation, depending on your lifestyle, drinking the alcohol and eating the non-healthy food, red meat, that defects all of your systems. And then they're gonna be piling up on your brain, defecting the brain, causing the Alzheimer's disease.
Yeah.
It's different from Parkinson because Parkinson, whenever you hear Parkinson, remember
The shape.
the substantia. The substantia, who can tell me? The substantia nigra. That is the region in your brain that is responsible for making dopamine. So dopamine is the antagonist of acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is stimulatory. Acetylcholine is stimulating. It's stimulating you. But dopamine checks it. Checks and balances.
Yeah.
But people who have Parkinson, the substantia nigra is damaged. So there is no more
Control.
dopamine.
Right.
There is only
The other one.
acetylcholine.
Acetylcholine.
And then that's why they shake all the time.
They can't
Yeah.
control.
So dopamine isn't exactly inhibitory either?
Is inhibitory.
Oh, it
Dopamine
is?
is inhibitory.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Acetylcholine is excitatory.
Okay.
Okay. You see that's the substantia nigra. And that's the main problem. Any question?
No?
Okay. Now we're gonna go to chapter 13, the spinal cord. So we mentioned that the spinal cord is responsible for relaying all of it's like the information highway.
Like the messages.
Yeah, so relays the messages to the brain. So the spinal cord is like the state government. The spinal cord is the state government. The brain is the federal government. So the spinal cord is known as the information highway. It's called the information highway because it's responsible for information flowing up to the central nervous system, the brain, and information flowing down. Very good, very good. So the spinal cord is important for the conduction. Nerve fibers conduct sensory and motor information up and down the spinal cord. There's also neural integration in the spinal cord. Remember how I showed you two horns? Information flows into the posterior horn, the back horn, and gets integrated and then flows out into the anterior horn. And then your spinal cord is important because it has central pattern generators. Those are groups of neurons that coordinate the repetitive sequence of contractions. Reflexes, those are involuntary responses to the stimuli that are vital to your posture. That are vital to your posture. The spinal cord is a cylinder of nervous tissue. It arises from the brainstem at the foramen magnum. Remember we talked about that earlier. So at the foramen magnum, the end circle the foramen at the base of your skull. That is where all of the spinal cord comes out. Following who? So the spinal cord comes out behind who? The brainstem. Very good. So behind the brainstem, there's a foramen magnum, and then the spinal cord comes out.
Professor, I saw a video yesterday talking about the spine or the middle, and he took the middle of her head, he took a piece of hair, and he wrapped it, and he went like that, and you could hear it pop.
The what?
Something, a gland. There's a gland in the middle of our head. I forgot the name.
Yeah.
I'm gonna show you.
Yeah, I don't know. You show me later, but I don't think that's
more.
okay.
No.
So remember, your spinal cord is divided into segments. There's a cervical region, there is a thoracic region, there is a lumbar region, and there is a sacral region. So you see that the spinal cord is divided into the cervical, thoracic, lumbar, and sacral regions. So let's go over the, how do I turn this thing? Okay, everybody look here. So when it comes to the spinal cord, we have already said that for your spinal cord, you first have the brain, that's the brain. And we said that this part of the brain that is very conspicuous, behind it there's like a cauliflower structure, and then you have those are the three structures that make up your brain. You have three structures that make up your brain. This structure down here, and you have this structure right over here that looks like a cauliflower. Then you have this huge and big structure here. Let's label it three. What do you know? What do you name the first one? The cerebrum. On the back, what do we have? This cauliflower structure. What do we call it? Cerebellum. And down here, what do we have? The brain stem. Then we said that all of your brain is covered by this bony protective helmet structure. What's the name of this bony protective helmet structure that is covering all parts of your brain? That is the bony skull. That is your skull. And you have this hole here, so that's your skull. And what do we name this hole here? Excellent. This is the foramen magnum. That is foramen magnum. That is foramen magnum. And then you have, coming out of the foramen magnum, what do you have? Spinal cord is coming out like this. Spinal cord coming out like this.
It's thick like that?
Okay, and don't forget that that there is a bony structure. The same way there's a bony structure around the skull, there's a bony structure that goes all the way around the
It's thick. I mean, what's it called?
Spinal cord.
Yeah. Spinal.
around the spinal cord. And we said that the bony structure is called the bony skull. And this bony structure around the spinal cord is called what?
Vertebral column?
What's it called? Somebody raise your hand. What do we call this? Yes,
Visceral column?
not visceral column. The brain is visceral structure, but
Is it vertebrae?
yes, that's called vertebral column. Vertebral column. Now, if you look at the vertebral column, what do you have? You see that this is the spinal cord. The spinal cord has two horns. 1, 2, 3, 4. You see? It has two horns. Two horns are in the back. Two horns are in the back. Two horns in the back and two horns in the front. Two horns in the back and two horns in the front. The two horns in the back, what do we call it?
Posterior horn.
Posterior. There's another name?
Dorsal back.
Dorsal
Horn.
and back horn. And then to the front, what do we have? We have another horn that is what?
Ventral horn.
Anterior,
Ventral.
ventral, and
Front.
front. Thank you. Frontal. Very good. You need to understand that your spinal cord, there's something very obvious that I drew here. That there's a gap. You see this gap here? Your spinal cord does not fit all the way to the end of the vertebral column. Your spinal cord does not go all the way to the end. You see, it didn't go all the way down here. It ended by making a cone over here. This is the end. What's the name of this cone? This cone is called the medullary cone. That is the medullary cone. Medullary cone. Did you get it? Medullary cone? The medullary cone, its name in Latin is called conus medullaris. Medullaris. Conus medullaris.
That says dorsal balls.
Dorsal back.
Oh, B-A-C-K.
B-A-C-K. So that's the conus medullaris. So what is the conus medullaris? The conus medullaris is the
Ending of the spinal cord.
ending of the spinal cord. And remember, we said the spinal cord does not touch the
The spinal cord does not touch the corner.
does not
Yeah,
touch the vertebral column. There are nerves that are coming down though. There are nerves that are coming down from the spinal cord that are touching the end of the
And those are
vertebral column. What do we call those? They look like hairs, but they are not hairs. They are nerves. Yes.
Are they sacral nerves?
I'm sorry?
That's the sacral region? Are they sacral nerves?
No, because the sacrum begins after the end of the vertebral
Okay.
column. We're not talking about that. We're talking about inside. So inside you have the spinal cord, and then you have those nerves coming down like a horse tail. Horse tail. In Latin, they call that coda
Cola.
equina.
Cauda equina, and that's what it's called.
So coda equina meaning
Cola equina.
the hair of the
Or the end.
tail of the horse.
Yeah, the end.
So your spinal cord ends at the conus medullaris. So you can divide your vertebral column in 2/3. 1/3 is full of spinal cord. The second third is full of the spinal cord. The last third is empty and full of spinal nerves, known as the coda equina, the tails of the horse. No, equina, like when they say an equestrian.
In Spanish is equina, means corner.
Equina means corner. Okay, so you see here, coda is the coda equina.
Like the end, the corner goes
Oh,
in the end.
okay,
Do you get that?
yeah.
That's very important. Remember, we have the posterior and we have the dorsal horn and we have the anterior. The posterior dorsal back horn is in blue and the anterior frontal ventral horn is in red. So, and remember, we said that this is our spinal cord. So we will always have what kinds of nerves? What kinds of nerves will we have around our spinal cord? Yeah, PNS. But what do we call them? Spinal nerves. So you have spinal nerves coming in the back, like this. Spinal nerves coming in the back. Spinal nerves coming in the back like that. Spinal nerves coming in the back like this. Spinal nerves coming in the back. So what is coming in? What is coming in?
Comes out.
So we have signals that are coming in from both directions.
Called receptor, sensor, detector.
Professor, look. Let me show you.
Okay. So if you look here, what do we have? We have signals that are coming in where? To the
Spinal nerve.
spinal nerves that are going where?
Into the spinal cord.
The cord.
Where in my spinal cord?
The back.
In the back, in the posterior dorsal horn. So
Okay.
they come from where? From a
Receptor.
receptor. And then they go and they are input, sensory, and afferent. Same thing. You look here, in the receptor, you have input, sensory, afferent. Always going in the back, not the front. And then once they enter the spinal cord, they get processed and they come out of the what?
Spinal.
They come out of the anterior horn. Very
Yeah.
good. They come out of the anterior horn. 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 And they come out of the anterior horn to get to where?
Effector?
To get to the
Output motor efferent?
effector. They get to the effector. They get to the
Effector.
They get to the effector. They get to the effector. Are we clear?
Yeah.
So, the spinal nerves are two kinds. One bringing input to the back and one bringing output from the anterior part. Is that clear? So you need to also know that information in your spinal cord does not only travel horizontally, sideways. You need to know that your spinal cord is also responsible for communicating with your
Brain.
with your
Body.
brain. So it's going to be sending information up to the brain, Information is going up to the brain, and up to the brain. Information coming down the brain, coming down from the brain, coming down from the brain, and coming down. So you see now, there is information that is going up. If you're going from the spinal cord up, what kind of information is that? If you're going up, what kind of information is that? If you are going up.
The input?
Input sensory.
Excellent. That is called input sensory afferent. Input sensory afferent. Because you're going in the brain. You can't be going in the brain and your motor. Doesn't make any sense. But if you're coming down, the brain, you're coming down the brain.
Output.
Like that. This is output,
Motor efferent.
motor, and efferent.
Efferent and afferent.
But there's a special case here. We call them ascending, descending. Ascending, descending. It's called ascending tracks. Ascending tracks. So ascending tracks go up from the spinal cord carrying input sensory afferent. You can't be calling the ones down here ascending. No, those are not ascending. Those are coming in and out the spinal cord. But the ones that are coming in, going up to the brain, you have to be ascending. Ascending where? Ascending to heaven? You're ascending to the brain. So we're going from the spinal cord up to the brain. It's called ascending track.
And another
Input sensory afferent.
descending.
And coming down, descending, that's output motor efferent. That is called descending track. Why descending? Because it's going from the brain. Descending where? Descending to hell, down to the hell, to the abyss?
Yes.
No, descending down to the spinal cord. So if you're going from the spinal cord up to the brain, that's ascending, input sensory afferent. If you're descending down from the brain to the spinal cord, your output motor efferent descending. Is that clear?
Yes.
You really need to know that. That the spinal cord is like a state government. It can regulate things coming in and coming out. But sometimes it needs help from the brain. When it needs help, it has ascending and descending tracks. Now you see why they call the spinal cord the information highway, because it's like an exit. Things coming, you can exit the enter the highway, exit the highway. Go up to the brain, come down from the brain. That's why they call the spinal cord, the spinal cord is called the information highway. Is that clear? Yeah. This is the information regarding the spinal tracts. So this is the brain and the spinal cord. I talked to you already about the vertebral helmet. The vertebral helmet. Well, that's a protective layer, but that's not actually very intimate or touching your nervous system. There is 3 other layers. So for example, if you're wearing a helmet, is the helmet part of your head?
No.
No, it's not. So the same thing. The brain and the spinal cord are wearing the skull and the vertebral column, but that's not part of them. There are 3 other layers on top of the brain and the spinal cord. The first layer that is touching the brain and the spinal cord, the very first layer that is touching the brain and the spinal cord is called the pia mater. You guys ever heard of the meninges?
Yeah.
Meninges are the meningitis is an inflammation of those meningeal layers.
Yeah.
Of the meninges layers. But you need to know that there is what is known as pia mater, arachnoid mater, and dura mater. What does mater mean? It means mother. So first of all, you have your brain. Remember, you have your brain. You have your brain. You have your brain. And you have your cauliflower cerebellum. Then you have your brain stem. Then you have your spinal cord. That's your spinal cord with its 2 horns on the inside. There is a layer that is touching all the brain, touching it like a saran wrap. You know how there's a hot dog? There's like a non-edible layer that is like on touching the hot dog. You can peel it off the hot dog. It is so touching the hot dog, you would think that it's actually part of the hot dog. You know what I'm talking about? That is your pia mater. The one that is touching
The skin.
the skin that is touching the brain is called the pia mater. That is called the pia mater. That is the pia mater. Then on top of the pia mater, there is a spider. It's called a spider or arachnoid. Arachnoid mater. So the spider or arachnoid mater is the next layer that is more superficial and on top of the pia mater. That is the arachnoid. That is the arachnoid mater. This is the arachnoid. Okay. You guys see the arachnoid mater? That's the arachnoid mater in blue. And lastly, you have a layer that is above the arachnoid mater known as the dura mater, known as the dura mater. That is the dura mater. That is the dura mater.
That means hard?
Dura mater meaning tough.
Hard, yeah.
Tough, very tough mater. That is the dura mater, dura mater, dura mater. You see, this is the dura mater, the tough layer. Dura mater, dura mater, dura mater. That's the third layer known as the dura mater. And don't forget, who's on top of all of them? Spinal cord. Sorry?
The school.
The skull. Very good. So we have the skull up here. This is the, let me put it in green. You have the skull. The skull here. Very good. In green, you have the skull. You have the skull in green. And who's covering the spinal cord? Who's covering the spinal cord? Vertebral column. And then you have the skull. What's the name of the hole through which the spinal cord comes out?
Foramen magnum.
Foramen magnum. Now, you need to understand that if there is, yes,
I'm just nitpicking really quick. It's
don't
one-
nitpick, don't nitpick.
It's one T though, because you say if we spell it wrong, then it's messed up.
No, it's okay.
M-A-T-E-R.
It's okay. Mater with a T or double D. It's okay. That one is fine.
Double is okay.
What is okay.
Okay.
That one is fine. It's not a problem. Okay, so we have the green skull and we have the green vertebral column. Remember anybody heard of the epidural anesthesia? Very good. So where do they put the epidural anesthesia?
In the lumbar, right? Up.
It's
The back.
between, I mean where they put it, like here.
Oh, on the
Do they
spine.
put it between
I think-
green and brown, between the
Oh, the
the-
top layer.
which layers?
The green and,
No, it's in between the dura mater and the pia mater.
It's between, no. They put it between the dura mater and the
the first
Pia
one.
mater.
bone.
Yeah.
Between the
The
dura
first one, yeah,
mater,
the top layer.
you see here? Between the dura mater in brown, and here, in the middle here, between the dura mater
The
and
green is the bone?
the bony, vertebral column. So they put it in between, they
Yeah.
bathe all this region with anesthesia.
Yeah.
And there's a spinal tap. That's a different thing. Spinal tap is when they go here.
So spinal tap. For pregnancy?
Spinal tap is when they take like a,
Oh, like when you go for testing and they.
yeah, and they
something.
take a sample.
Yeah.
They go between the pia mater, between the
Oh, it's deeper.
arachnoid and the pia mater.
So it's
There is a
deeper.
lot of solution in there to take it and to examine it.
Does
Any
that-
questions?
Does that hurt still too?
It doesn't hurt because they give you an
But
anesthesia
they made me go like this.
to feel,
Like this,
yeah.
and I can't move or sneeze or nothing. God forbid you could get paralyzed.
Yeah, no, you're not getting paralyzed, but
The spinal
you just-
tap, I think it would be different, but I think it would still ache the same the way the epidural did, but not in the same kind of way.
Professor, with the adrenaline, when you're about to give birth, you don't really need the epidural. Some people, like, I have 3 kids. The middle, he came out without it. I didn't have time.
Mm.
But it didn't hurt.
Man,
You know what I mean? It hurted like everything.
the devil is a lie. I did
So-
epidural
so-
and without, and
Because like our
both of them
own
hurted.
body provides that. If we, you know what I mean? Like naturally.
yeah, the birth, yeah.
Right, so that kind of like
Is your
covers.
adrenaline crack?
Like when you're fighting and you don't know you got cut.
Okay.